Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Jack Llewellyn, and this is Cartels, Conspiracies, and Camarena. In the last week or so, you may have heard news reports, news stories about violence in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, in particular, the city of Matamoros. May have heard stories about infighting amongst the Gulf Cartel being the reason for the violence. Well, today we're going to talk about what happened, and then we're also going to look at the why it's happening and maybe dig down a level or two to talk about what's really going on, what the real drivers of the violence are, or at least might be. So before we really dive into what's happened, let's talk about Tamaulipas and Matamoros. Right? I'm going to put up a map of Tamaulipas, and it's not a detailed map, but that's okay. I want you to see where it is in Mexico and note a couple of things. Number one, it's right on the border, right? So long border with Texas, which is important. Number two, it's right on the coast, at least portions of it are. So it has ocean access, ocean ports, those sorts of things. And then number three, if you look at the border of Tamaulipas going northwest, you'll see it follows the Rio Grande all the way up a little bit past Nuevo Laredo. The state of Tamaulipas has several important cities. In addition to Matamoros, which we'll talk more about in just a second, there's Reynosa, there's Nuevo Laredo, as we said, there's Ciudad Victoria, and other cities. We're also going to put up now a map of the Brownsville, Matamoros area. And it too isn't overly detailed, but that's not important. What I want you to really focus on is look at all of the roads, all of the transportation that goes into the Brownsville area. Brownsville, Matamoros is a large industrial transportation area. Lots of trucks, lots of commercial vehicles, lots of products go back and forth every single day. And that makes it very valuable for cartels, for drug trafficking, right? The more commercial, the more standard vehicles you have going back and forth, the easier it is to hide stuff, and not everything can be stopped. So it's a valuable, area in that regard. Some other things to know about Brownsville and Matamoros. The metro area has a population of about 1.4 million, making it the fourth largest metropolitan area on the border between Mexico and the United States. It also, because of its proximity to Reynosa and then to Nuevo Laredo, that whole stretch of border is a prime avenue for the transportation of drugs and people. So, important area. What do we know historically? We've talked about the Gulf Cartel before. The Gulf Cartel had this as its home area for years, right? The Gulf Cartel, as we've discussed, really doesn't exist as a cohesive unit anymore. Instead, it's got various factions. So, what happened last week? Short answer is lots of violence, lots of infighting between factions. And we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. One of the things that happened is there were lots and lots of roadblocks put up in various areas throughout Matamoros. All kinds of stories. Carjackings being conducted in Matamoros, and then the cars being used to block off certain areas. There was a story of a school bus being carjacked. Kids were told to get off, and then they used the bus as another blockade. Lots of different things going on. I wanted to show you some really good video that I just couldn't quite get managed yet. I'm going to put it up as soon as it comes in. I'll put it up on YouTube as a short. But for now, I want to play a video for you. We're just going to play a snippet of it. This is taken from the border looking into Matamoros from Brownsville. And you could just listen to the gunshots going on in broad daylight. So I'm going to be quiet for just a second and let you listen to this video. Okay, so in response to all of the activity going on, not just in Matamoros, but also in Reynosa and some other areas, the military brought in a significant presence. Some reports said about 700 troops, a couple of helicopters. I'm going to show you a video now that purports to be a convoy of military vehicles going into Reynosa. And this is a big convoy. So take a look at this and see if this doesn't just shock you, the size of the presence of the military. All right, so I'm going to keep talking while we're playing that. So you got this intercartel violence going on. At the same time, things are a little bit agitated because a top lieutenant in the Metros faction of the Gulf Cartel, a guy by the name of Hugo Salinas Cortinas, who went by the nickname La Cabra or the Goat, was arrested in Matamoros. And just a couple weeks earlier in Houston, the brother of Miguel Villarreal, a former Gulf Cartel Plaza boss, was sentenced in Houston to 180 months in prison for his role in cocaine distribution. So you got a whole bunch of different things going on. You got, factions that may be fighting with each other. You've got arrests. You've got a military presence. Lots going on, right? Okay. So what do we know really, though? Here's what's important. This is the story beneath the story, and then we're going to go one layer below. The two main factions that were engaged in the activities in Matamoros over the last week or 10 days were the Metros, who really are from the Reynosa area, but again, that's not a long distance. And then you have the Scorpions, the Scorpiones from Matamoros, right? The traditional home of the Gulf Cartel. They are the ones engaging in most of the violence. Okay, so you get the easy narrative. Hey, it's two factions of the once powerful Gulf Cartel. Here's what's important, though. CJNG has aligned itself, or vice versa, with the Metros, while the Scorpions have aligned themselves with CDS. For a long time, other cartels, particularly these two, have tried to get a stronghold in Tamaulipas, right? In Nuevo Laredo, in other areas. This fighting amongst the factions of the Gulf Cartel is really two proxies for the large cartels, the big bad cartels, CJNG and CDS, fighting for control over the Brownsville-Reynosa area. And if you think about it, that's a great way to do it if you're CJNG or CDS, right? You have your proxies fight the battle for you. It's important to keep that in mind when you listen to, reports of, how they're going to quell things or what the military is doing or what the U.S. should do or how this is affecting Brownsville. As is the case with lots of things. the media, generally speaking, gets the top layer right. They don't often get the second and third levels correct, nor do they often try. And a lot of people who think they know what's going on also may not get it right. So I think it's so important for us to understand what's really going on. And the fighting in Matamoros is part of the larger, continuing, all-out battle between CJNG and CDS. And note that these battles picked up shortly after the announced indictments or the unsealed indictments of Los Chapitos in the United States. Query: were actions taken in Matamoros by CJNG, or let me rephrase that, in Tamaulipas by CJNG, using the metros as their proxies because they sensed a weakness in CDS as a result of the indictments or as a result of the reaction to the indictments by Los Chapitos and those associated with them? Don't know the answer to that, but I think it's something we want to think about and we want to pay attention to going forward. All right. Thank you for joining me. That's been Cartels, Conspiracies, and Camarena. Look for another episode coming up in a couple of days.